Hey there, everybody. Welcome to the channel. Glad you're here. Couple of interesting things Spirit led me to look into today for you all. So let's get right into it. We understand now out of nowhere, right after, everything amping up again with the Strait of Hormuz and Iran, the Iran war, and suddenly on the heels of all these FBI agents being sent into Georgia to discover fraud around elections, the 2020 elections, right? Those two things I think are going to be really prevalent when Trump decided to jump up and talk about announce this national address that he's going to do on Thursday. I think those are going to be two main things. We're going to hear a lot of basically lies around findings for entertainment purposes only, gotta say it right. But supposed findings around fraud, because he is really nervous about John Ossoff taking it from Mike Collins in for the Senate race. And we know the Senate is tight. He's going to be scrambling for everything. And that said, I also want to mention, and I'll look more into it after July 27th, we know that the pending replacement for Graham Plattner, Susan Collins, for the Mainers who went out and took to the streets yesterday behind the latest ICE unaliving that we saw of that Colombian immigrant. That what this has done, they protesters went to Susan Collins's office enraged and like demanding her ouster. I think this latest episode by ICE is going to really, depending on who the candidate is that replaces Plattner, but I really think, you all, this has strengthened the chances that Maine is going to come through with a Democrat to oust Susan Collins. But again, we'll look more into that once that replacement is named and we start heading into that race. Now, John Ossoff. Raphael Warnock, he's going to talk about him being illegitimate as well, but Raphael Warnock is not, as we know, is not up for re-election in this midterm cycle. But many experts are saying, hey, you know what, Front, you just essentially gifted Ossoff some additional votes, right? You just basically donated to his campaign, okay? So I want to take a look at that and see how that's going to go. Like, is that the plan? Remembering the plan to basically delegitimize the elections. Is this a steal? Is this basically from amping up his plan to steal the midterms, right? The plot thickens to steal the midterms. We're watching it unfold before our eyes, but we also noticed how diabolical it is, like step by step, how they execute their plans. Remembering it, in relation to that, what happened just last week, the abolishment of the Election Assistance Commission, which does what? One of its functions is to assist states with maintaining their voting machines and making sure they're operational. So, is he basically going to come out on Thursday and say there have been findings that the voting machines don't work? We already know his hoop and hollering about mail-in ballots, but now attacking the actual voting machines. Spirit, what can we expect? The King of Wands, the Ace of Cups, I'm not going to ignore it. This is not from. This is John Ossoff. This is really going to backfire spectacularly, you all, and I'm glad to see that there's a little relief. Hopefully a lot of you are feeling around that as well. Are you showing me that is the plan to delegitimize and basically the Queen of Wands, the Ten of Wands, to overwhelm voters, to overwhelm election officials, and the Six of Swords, the plan going forward to overwhelm Georgia's election officials, especially in Fulton County, which we know, he has Trump just has a in his gut around that. And the Chariot, trying to create an obstacle, because the Chariot gets over those obstacles, trying to create an obstacle to the legitimacy of the votes that he sees coming. Now, the fact that we started out with that King of Wands, which I do feel like that's John Ossoff coming through with the Ace of Cups, the will of the people, he is going, let's just get to it. Is this going to help John Ossoff defeat Mike Collins? When Trump makes this speech, spewing these, conspiracy theories and fraud in Georgia, is this going to actually work to Ossoff's benefit? Five of Wands, that's his objective, to create the conflict. Trump wants to create that conflict around the Georgia elections. And of course, as a model for then what would be nationwide. The Seven of Wands, trying to absolutely create this conflict. He is fighting tooth and nail. The Page of Wands, to hopefully stir up his younger crowd again, hoping that they'll turn out for him, ready to fight, ready to declare, take America back. And Ace of Pentacles, Spirit is confirming that. So that's the plan. That's what he's doing. He's setting the stage because, of course, what he is able to say in one state, he can then farm it out to other states as well. Now, Spirit, will this actually help John Ossoff in his Senate race against Mike Collins? Nine of Swords. I think that's Mike Collins worried, and the High Priestess. Mike Collins is really going to be worried because the truth, all of this is built on a lie. There was no fraud, over and over again. We're still talking about 2020 elections, right? Over and over again, it's been demonstrated there was no fraud. So that Nine of Swords, I think, is actually Mike Collins' understanding, even though he's got to pay to play and continue to cooperate with Trump. He knows that the truth of this is going to make his candidacy running for Senate against Ossoff done. And the High Priestess he's hoping that these supposed findings by from that, there was some hanky-panky in the elections, there was fraud. He's hoping, Mike Collins is hoping that they can keep it under wraps just long enough to get through the election and somehow taint John Ossoff. But there's the Magician. Look, people aren't stupid. People are not stupid. And what this is actually going to do is create more momentum for voters, particularly black voters in Fulton County, in and around Fulton County, to turn out. And there's the Queen of Cups and the Nine of Cups. So there's someone who champions the truth. Once he makes this national address on Thursday, there's someone who comes out and champions the truth of the matter behind, and increasing endorsements of Ossoff, Nine of Cups. The people wanting to see him do well and coming in cups. All of this, I'm taping this early Tuesday morning. We're on that new moon in Cancer, right? If I'm not mistaken, new moon in Cancer today. So I think that's why Spirit is giving us a lot of this watery energy. There is someone who's going to come out and really go gung-ho on endorsing and promoting John Ossoff as a absolute choice against Mike Collins. And is there victory? There's victory. I just said choice against Mike Collins, and the lovers very often can indicate a choice, a decision that's being made, So this you all is going to, and that going back to that Nine of Swords that we saw around Mike Collins, he knows that ultimately this is going to mess him up. Or he's certainly afraid of that in that Nine of Swords energy. He fears tremendously that this is going to mess him up. But what's he going to do? He's caught in a trick bag. He can't come out and say, don't do this. This is absolutely what he has agreed to. He's agreed to, do whatever Trump told him to do. But you all, this is, as like I said, I saw several articles online today. And a lot of experts are saying, political analysts are saying, you know what, Trump, you just basically gave John Ossoff a gift. So go ahead and say what you're going to say. All right. Now, the Another serious component to this as well, though, is we're expecting Trump to say voting machines were tampered with, can't trust them going into this midterms, right? That's one reason why the Election Assistance Commission was demolished last week, all right? But also, interestingly today, who is appearing on Capitol Hill to request more funding for security? Scotus. And the two that they're sending, the two justices that are going to appear before Congress today, are Amy Coney Barrett and Elena Kagan. Interesting. So their budget is something like $228 million going into next year, 2027. Of that 228 million, we're hearing that there's an additional 20 million that they are asking for to be applied to security, not just in the court, but also to protect their homes, the justices' homes. Why? Why is there all this need for additional protection? Because when Trump starts coming out with these certain elections around the nation, certainly Georgia, we can expect, perhaps Michigan as well, we can expect, and some others. When he starts, crying foul and these things go to the courts, where do the courts wind up having to go, like the highest level to make those decisions? Of course, SCOTUS, right? Supreme Court. Has Trump struck a deal already? Because again, going back, Spirit is saying one thing that they do, they plot step by step by step by step, and they execute that plan step by step. All right, all of this. Has Trump already approached Roberts to be prepared for these lawsuits around the midterm elections? And is that why SCOTUS is coming forward with this additional request for security? That's what I'm getting, you all. Like, this didn't come out of nowhere. What? Why all of a sudden you need all this extra money for security? What is it that you're anticipating that you're going to feel more threats around? Spirit. Is the fix in with Roberts on decisions for after the midterms? The Ten of Swords. Because this is Trump absolutely at his wit's end and seeing in plain writing on every wall he could possibly look at that the end is near. Spirit, has he reached out to Roberts? Is Roberts in on working and reassuring Trump? When it gets to us, we're going to handle it. The King of Swords, I feel like that's Roberts. Did he talk to Trump about this and say, I got you? Eight of Swords. He is anticipating, he's fearful of his security and the rest of the justices. Because he knows what they're about to do. And there's the star. He knows what they're about to do. Planning for the future, knowing what decisions they're going to make or how they are agreeing with Trump to come down on some of these decisions when it's challenged in the courts. Now, the star is also the will of the people, though, ruled by Aquarius. One for all and all for one. It can be ruled by Aquarius, ruled by Uranus, can be /Saturn, can be rebellious. Is this going to foster a serious rebellion among the American people? If it gets to SCOTUS and SCOTUS does the thing, Ten of Pentacles, that's the people showing up in force around the country. Will there be repercussions around SCOTUS? The Hierophant, highest ranks of government. I know that we have seen, and Spirit has said for a long time, that once the administration changes over, starting with the House and then moving on to 2028, that term limits will become a serious thing with SCOTUS, because so many lessons now have been learned, having seen in real time just how devastating that court can be and how they chose to be devastating. So, and basically unraveling the Constitution. I think what Spirit is saying here in that Hierophant is, yes, this actually provides more fodder. Not that there isn't enough already based on Scotus's decisions to say, look, we're looking right at your faces, and we know that you're basically another tool of Trump, and you agreed to this. The Hierophant is showing the court's in trouble. And so if they decide, and the Ace of Pentacles, thank you, Spirit, they're coming through to confirm that again. We're on the right track with that. So here's another test. And that is why we saw that 10 of Swords and that 8 of Swords around this. Because Roberts knows, as do the other justices now, why they selected Amy and Elena to go forward. Okay, whatever. But they know that when these cases reach the Supreme Court, however many of them there are, and if the Supreme Court goes Trump's way and overrules the will of the people, the star, Five of Cups. I'm looking deeper into, I see the Supreme Court as that Hierophant that I showed you a moment ago. Five of Cups is this disappointment, and the Six of Pentacles is this renegotiation of the power of the court. Somehow, some way, I don't know how, we're all entering into new territory, you all. But in terms of the Constitution and constitutional decisions, somehow there is something where there's a mechanism in place that will challenge even the Supreme Court and the legitimacy of this court. And somehow there's going to be something revealed that Roberts, first and foremost, agreed to do this, that there was some back end spirit. Will that come to light? Robert's duplicitousness. Will he judgment? I can put the deck down. There you go, y'all. Judgment. And the shame of it is he sees it coming. 10 of Swords and the 8 of Swords. He sees it coming. The 8 of Swords having to do with more of an internalized fear that he's feeling at this time, right? Internalized anxiety. And then the 10 of Swords is when it's all, cards are all over the table. The news hits. This is the email. This is the letter. This is the conversation. This was the meeting. And when the meeting happened, where the court said, we know what you're going to do to try and stop these midterms and maintain control. And so we'll help you. Judgment. Pluto, blow it up. Right? Meaning, let the truth come out. But that also feels you all like, okay, so what do we do at that point? You've got the existing administration manufacturing all of this. You've got the so-called last stop on the decision, legally, to put a stop to it, having bought in. So at what point does, where is, and I'm not seeing it, maybe in the comments, so those of you who are spiritually attuned, where does the next cluster come in to step in? I know a while ago we were all talking about, many of you, and I felt it, other readers and psychics have felt it as well, that there was going to be or will be sort of a council that comes in, that has to step in, because these branches of government, Congress, the court, Scotus, and the executive branch, hello, right? All tower, all fall down. So then where do we go to start to reestablish that order? Spirit, is there, will this necessitate this council that comes together? Whether it's Obama, Biden, other leaders, respected leaders. Buttigieg, 4 of Swords. There's 4. There's 4 of them. Three of Wands. They band together. So at least 4 people on some sort of council that band together, and the Six of Wands to fight it. And that fight will be victorious, but it's going to have to be, it's going to like, because the nature of this is so like wiping the slate entirely clean and taking us back to, the formation of the country. We are talking about the Constitution and violations of the Constitution. But that's essentially what I'm saying, and I know we'll be looking more into that as we go forward, y'all. That as all of this really starts to play out. So that's the bottom line: is the plan is to go ahead and do whatever is necessary to take these elections, to challenge these elections, to challenge the legitimacy and legality of the elections. And then certainly we're in the main races where the Senate is at stake. And then letting it run up the ranks to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court, that with their added additional security, they're going to give it to them. With their added security is this is why they need it. No shade to the justices that we know who are still trying to uphold the Constitution. I don't want to throw shade on Kagan, or certainly not the other 2 justices, that is Sotomayor and Ketanji Brown Jackson. Not on them, but it's going to be interesting to see if they, in fact, now that I'm saying their names, I get the sense that whoever this council is that has to step in, that they will seek out their input, because they know what's happening. They know that the court has been co-opted. All right. Second thing I want to look at today is around the Strait of Hormuz. Now, going back again to this so-called national address, important news that Trump is prepared to disclose to the nation on Thursday, is going to be a justification for continuing the Iran war. Now, he's come out and said he's worked it out. The U.S. is going to be in control of the Strait of Hormuz. We're even going to make some money off of the deal. We're going to, because we're protecting the Strait, and we're the ones who are going to keep the Strait open. We're going to charge a 20% tolling fee for other countries to help move their ships, their cargo ships through the Strait, right? Like, in what universe? In what universe, right? But here's the deal. Like, it ain't happening. But here's the deal. What he has always counted on from the beginning of this, earlier this year, was the market fluctuation, up and down, up and down. When he says the Strait is closed, oil goes up, markets get wacky. When he says okay, we're working things out with Iran, it's open, and we see the markets start to adjust. Well, now we understand the markets have gotten hip to the game. Other countries have gotten hip to this game. And his whole plan around the Strait of Hormuz, among the many reasons it will fail, is because we're understanding there's a great story out of Axios today that broke, that is saying, where are the nations? I want to make sure I get it right. There are projects already underway, you all, to start to reroute oil. People are like, you know what? Open Strait of Hormuz, close Strait of Hormuz, up and down, today, tomorrow. This is not working any longer. It's not viable. The Strait of Hormuz will probably never go back to functioning the way that it used to. All right. So we have the UAE, Iraq, and Dubai that apparently already have construction projects underway to begin to reroute oil through, instead of just going through the Strait of Hormuz, they are rerouting them from the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean and Red Seas. Okay? Already, this isn't a proposal, apparently already in the works. You've got Dubai, the UAE. We understand that Iran is already firing on Saudi Arabia, just like they did earlier this year. So they've got to do something. And the markets, you have Wall Street Journal is talking about this, Bloomberg is talking about this, and Goldman Sachs, okay, is talking about this. And so they're saying, hey, all right, we see all this happening, And we're not going to even play ball with you anymore, Trump. We're going to get on the board with what we see really happening in the markets. Spirit, is this going to blow up in Trump's face? The lies, basically, that now the markets are going to turn against him and move on in other directions with these new construction projects. We have the Five of Swords at the bottom of the deck with the universe and strength. I'm not going to ignore it. So he's confused about this yet. He hasn't. Trump has not quite caught on to the game. This right now is a game that's being played out with market analysts and the Wall Street titans, etc., with these other countries, right? With the UAE, Dubai, Iraq, etc. But they're onto that, but he's not. And his messaging around that is confused. What he's being told from around what's really these construction projects that are already underway, he's getting conflicting messages. And they just showed me a horse with blinders on, like he doesn't want to see it because he has to continue to feel like he's getting some sort of a win. And promoting this war is the way that he does it. Five of Pentacles, though, there is no money coming out of it. And economically, the price that continues to be paid by Americans is going to impact and the lies revealed. There is no 20% toll that you're collecting. There is no upshot to this. The gas prices continue to rise. The Wheel of Fortune, karma, and the clock is ticking. And also what I'm getting from that universe and the Five of Swords, you all, is that, bear with me on this. I'm going to try and articulate it the way I'm getting it in my spirit. Just as we saw the EU, European Union, and NATO and other allies Canada, etc., begin to regroup and say, okay, we got to figure out something so that we're less dependent on the U.S. because we can't depend on Trump any longer. So in terms of military spending, in terms of economic ties, like countries have already started to move on. All right. We see this. We've seen it play out before our eyes. Spirit is saying similar, like a parallel track to oil and trade. And so the Wall Street and the markets are ready to move on as well, similar to the way the European Union and NATO have, the allies have, right? There's a parallel there that the markets are like, you know what, we've played ball with you long enough and kept going up and down because as long as we knew you could manipulate things in our favor and we can still make our money, fine. But now you're about to make some mistakes and it's not going to be feasible or profitable for us. And the Eight of Pentacles. Yeah, that's money, and that's the skill and the markets working to get around Trump. And so this whole Strait of Hormuz thing and continuing to, and what he did that was slick, Trump, I didn't take time to look at all the details around it, but there's some sort of thing where because he made an announcement to Congress that the war in Iran was continuing, that somehow that sidestepped a requirement for Congress to approve that. So essentially, he has another 60-day window to continue to go and wreak havoc in the region without congressional approval, which, what are we talking, August, September, kind of starts creeping closer to the election. But basically, Congress, the GOP, punks that they are, for entertainment purposes only, weasels, that now they have an excuse to say, well, we couldn't stop it because technically he has this 60-day window to continue to go in there. The last thing that I want to look at around this is, there are whispers again around boots on the ground around the Strait of Hormuz, like they're gonna have to go on land if in fact the plan is for the U.S. to continue to assert dominance in that region, under whatever fantasy he's having. All right. Spirit. Will there be boots on the ground? Is the military going to get sucked into a protracted battle in the Strait of Hormuz that's going to require boots on the ground? The Hierophant, the government calling for it, the Chariot coming right behind it. I think so, y'all. I mean, what other choice does he have? They're already saying, he's running out of ammunition and cost in terms of just doing it through airstrikes alone. Can't continue that indefinitely. So I do think that's going to happen, or the plan for that is to happen, to go ahead and be ready to implement boots on the ground if necessary. We know that Hegseth is all about it. Like, yes, let's do it today. But does that provoke more anti-Republican sentiment going into the midterms? The High Priestess and the Moon. Yes. People are worried about what's going to happen to their families. They're going to be more worried about what feels like they're not being leveled with. They're being lied to. That all of this was an illusion. The America First promises and the premise of it was always an illusion. And notice, all of this, I just pulled 4 cards. They're all major arcana. This is huge energy. And this prompts a huge shift in people, even his people, even MAGAs. Now, whether that means that they cross over, probably not. Voting for Democrats, probably not. Does that mean that more of them stay home? Maybe, right? And don't vote? Maybe. But this is not good. And the plans that they have to have that. Now, okay, one other question around that. So then 60 days runs out. At some point, Congress will have the power or will resume having the power to make a call. Spirit. Will Congress put a stop to it? Will Congress stop funding the war? Will Congress stop funding the war? 3 of Pentacles, the work to do it collaboratively, and the Devil. I think so. Chained to this man's whims and potentially at the cost of more lives in the military and the 3 of Pentacles. I think Congress is going to have to get to work. Reluctantly, fearfully, whatever you want to call it. But I think Congress is gonna put a stop to it. 10 of Pentacles, the money. Stop the money. Now, the timing of that, I'm not sure. But Congress is gonna, 6 of Cups. 7 of Pentacles. And the Emperor. This is stopping him. 7 of Pentacles, assessing and basically arguing, here's how much we are willing to spend for a defense budget and military budget in defense no matter what. And the 6 of Cups, it's going to pull back to something, either some previous levels of spending or something that causes this reassessment. So yes, I do think that Congress is going to pull back. When, if that is when we see after the elections and after the fight to uphold the results of the elections, which is going to happen, then we'll see some decisions come down to stop this unfettered funding and ridiculousness of this man. All right, you all, thank you so much for being with me. I appreciate you. I appreciate the hypes, by the way. That really does help the algorithm. It is so, sometimes it's just, you never know how the videos get out there and get disseminated. So I really do appreciate when you comment. Apparently that helps when you leave comments, at least 7 words. Why? I don't know. But thank you when you leave comments and hypes and all of it. I really do appreciate you. Okay. Chin up, shoulders back. It's going to get thick. It's going to get real, real thick. Breathe deep. Coming from your heart, as that sky is above you. And all the angels and divine forces right there. And the earth is beneath you, holding you steady. Okay? I'll talk to you a little later. Bye.